Hello and welcome to this week's The Courageous Leaders Club. I am delighted and very excited to introduce to you Mark Stringer, who is joining us today. Thank you so much for giving us your time, Mark.
Pleasure. Hi, Joe. Lovely to be here in my padded cell.
I know, I wasn't going to mention it, but as you have, it's very interesting. And I'm going to say, I'm actually in office today, so I do apologise if anyone's walking past, we get any distractions. So but we'll wing it, we'll go with it. Before we get started, just to kind of give an introduction to Mark, an incredibly busy man, done a lot. We go here. You're currently the CEO of SKOOT, which we've got is a new green technology platform, helping businesses and communities identify, offset and avoid car CO2s, which is incredible. You also founded PrettyGreen, which you're now the chair of, and also the chair of the producers, and you're the co-founder of Metropolitan Spirits. You're a very busy man, Mark.
Some would say a busy fool, but I am going to say I'm not the CEO. I am the CMO of SKOOT.
Yeah.
So I'm going to correct that. Otherwise, okay. Greg will be going, "Oh, you've got rid of me." Yeah, busy restlessness is probably the name of the game. But yeah, I like doing lots of things.
You like doing lots of things, and I will pick up on that restlessness later because I think that's a really good area for us to discuss. All my interviews, where I do start though, is for you, Mark. What does courageous leadership mean to you?
I've been pondering that because I knew the question was coming, and I was like, "Oh, there must be." I even went onto Urban Dictionary, but I couldn't find anything that that was clean enough to be able to say, "Oh, a courageous leader." I mean, I personally, when I think of a courageous leader, and I think of what that means for me or what it means for the team around me, and I think when you're doing the things you love and you're making difficult decisions, and we often have to, I don't kind of view that as being a courageous leader, because I think that's you're on your A game and you're doing all the things that you want to love, and making decisions don't feel difficult even when they are difficult. I think it's when the chips are down, you're having to do the things that you really don't want to do, make decisions that you don't necessarily want to make. I think as managers and leaders, we have to often make difficult decisions, but courageous leadership is often when you're having to make those decisions that you find really uncomfortable for you individually. And I think that's the difference between being a strong leader and being fearless to being courageous, is actually when it's difficult for you, when it makes you feel uncomfortable, when you don't want to be in that presentation, you don't want to be on that stage, you don't want to be doing that thing because it's really uncomfortable. I'd kind of argue that's where the courage comes, and often it's a personal courage that you have to draw upon to do those things.
I really love that, and I like the way you say it's that personal courage. It's going inside of you to access your potential, what it means to you to be able to still show up and do what's needed to be done to be the leader, to be a strong leader as well. You need to be able to access that courage to get up on that stage, which I think is lovely. For you, as you say, this restlessness you've had, and you've achieved so much, and you've set up so many different businesses. What has it been for you in your leadership that has enabled you to do these things?
I've spoken about this quite a lot with, teams around me. And I think some of us will, when you're asked at school what you want to do, most of us really struggle when we go through that phase. I think for me, I've always wanted to have a business. I've always wanted to have my own business. It's the only one thing that stayed constant, and I've always known that. I think very quickly you go from being a person who knows that they're very good at what they do, and there's verging on a confidence to an arrogance that some of us have who set up businesses, to understanding what you're not very good at and that actually you're rubbish at, and finding people who are much better than you at those things, but actually love them, if that makes sense. So rather than just going, I'm not very good at this, oh, you have it. I think for me, I've always, very early on, I would say, and I'd say very early on, but my late 20s, I was a nightmare in so many ways of just this drive, this self-ambition, this I am going to do this, to then realizing that it was only going to be possible if I surrounded myself with people who were better than me at lots of things. And then identifying what I'm not very good at because I don't want to do it, or I'm just not capable of it. It's not the thing that I'm good at. And finding those people who love it and who can support me. And I think that's the thing that's enabled me to do those things. And I look through all the different partnerships I've had with different people. It's the complementing each other that enables it to happen. Whether it's, you know, like a marriage and a relationship, you
Yeah.
have to complement each other. You have to be different enough to add value to each other, to
Yeah.
to call each other, but to enable you to do the things that you love.
Okay. And I'm curious because I love that strategy. And actually, I worked with a CEO who did the same, which I thought was so smart. Do you find then when you've given it to somebody for them to do you still feel for yourself as a business owner you need to understand what they're doing and still build your strength in that? Or is it really, I'm going to focus on what I'm good at, and actually what I'm not good at, that's covered? Or do you still focus on building up what your weaknesses are?
I think that restlessness and a thirst for knowledge I've got. I definitely love learning. I definitely love learning new things. But there is a sense of, you know, let's say building SKOOT up and the app and the tech team and the engineers. I don't know how to code. I've never written a line of code. I have no idea how to do it. My wife and I, we built a house a few years ago. I have no idea how to build a house. You know, we did it without an architect and without a designer. I didn't lay one brick. And I think it's that sense of, you don't have to know how to do it, but you have to be interested. You have to have a passion. You have to be understanding. Otherwise, it just feels like you're dismissive, if that makes sense. So you know, I love learning. I have to say, I love all the journey we've been on the SKOOT the last few years. But even now with the agency and the guys, how it's changing, there's just a sense of, you have to show an interest. You have to want to understand it to a point. But I'm not going to be a coder. You know, it's just not going to happen.
You need to be able to care about what's going on.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So for you building, you know, with SKOOT especially, you know, you're building a company that, as you say, you don't do the code, it's an app, it's not kind of your familiar territory. What's then the environment you've created that enables people to be successful in SKOOT? So being kind of the co-founder on this, going, what's the environment we want to create so people can be their best? What do you think, what have you done so people listening can go, these are some of the key things that help?
Yeah, I think whenever you're going into a partnership with someone like Greg, you know, when he approached me with the idea that we'd worked together previously, so that helped. We knew each other's sort of strengths. We knew each other. You know, it comes down to trust. You know, fundamentally, it comes down to trust, but it comes down to skill set and accountability. So, do you know what you're good at that complements the other person, and do you know what you're accountable for? And you know, if I think of SKOOT with me and Greg is a CFO, trained accountant. You know, created an amazing company in Bink, raised a lot of money, etc. So his skill set in setting up a tech business, in raising money and understanding finance, you know, is incredible. My skill set in marketing and brand building and, you know, emotional connection and engagement is my skill set. And then Alex, our CTO, his skill set is, you know, tech and product. And, you know, we talk about having our own lanes. You know, what are we accountable for? What do we need to deliver? And we do set each other KPIs, and we do hold each other accountable. And I think being prepared when you're a founder or a leader, even a manager, are you prepared to be held accountable by your peers? And are you prepared to be held accountable by the people below you? So, you know, we share our KPIs. The business knows what we're meant to be delivering. And the same way that we know what they're delivering, we have overarching company goals, departmental goals, and individual goals. So why shouldn't people know what my KPIs are, what I need to deliver? And I, you know, be prepared to be held accountable the same way that we hold other people accountable.
And I'd love to know, has anyone else in the company that wasn't one of your partners held you accountable? Have you been called out?
Yeah, we have a KPI at the minute to hit a certain number of signups on SKOOT from a B2B perspective, and that's very public. And being the marketeer and the storyteller, it's like, yeah, we've got them all, they're all signed. And the tech, you know, engineering product team are going, no, because I haven't got the contract. I haven't seen the contract. It's not signed. Therefore, it's not done. It's still being done. And you get held accountable. And we had a pulse check yesterday, weekly town hall, and it was called out. and it was called out in front of the company that, yeah, marketing BSing, everything's done, it's all great, sales, it's all done. Ink on the contract, get it done. And, you know, you can, it doesn't need to be done in a way which is undermining and shaming, but we should be prepared to say, I haven't done it. And that accountability, you know, it's a cliche on that V formation, 25% more uplift by flying in a V formation. That accountability is, guys, who needs help? Who needs help? Who needs a little bit of an uplift to get this across the line? Because we are here to help make it happen. So I know at PrettyGreen we've done it a lot, where when you sit in the weekly board, or you sit in the you know, management accounts, and you haven't delivered something, it's not you as an individual that's just being held accountable. It's the board, it's the business that should say, yeah, we haven't helped you. It's our fault as much as it's your fault.
That's brilliant. I really, really like that, because I would say a lot of the companies I work with is a lot of the question I get asked is, how do we put accountability in? Especially when if you haven't started holding people accountable and then you just want to change it to hold about accountability, it's quite a hard shift to make. And I'd love to know, what's the culture what's so important in the ingredients of your culture to allow people to feel they can comfortably say to you as the founder, you haven't done it, and to all comfortably called out with, you know, kindness. What is the culture that's created that environment for your teams to be comfortable to do that?
Yeah, I mean, this whole culture piece, and I think cultures are driven out of a value set. So do you know your values? Do you know what you stand for, what you don't stand for? So you can hold people accountable. So there's no point saying you're always late. It's really unacceptable, you're always late. If within your culture, within your environment, the value set is about being respectful and time being the key thing that we've got. So one thing is having your value set done, and the other thing is, you know, being approachable, being able to, you know, it's a two-way street. And I think my natural personality is to be a bit of a buffoon, be a bit of a joker. I'm slightly, I would say, schizophrenic. I'm incredibly driven, I have to win, but I'm also the guy who will be the person messing around, will be the joker, will be saying stupid things in meetings, will be kicking toilet rolls down corridors. You know, if I knew you were filming there, Jay, today, I would be doing sergeant behind you going, "Way," because I am an idiot. But I think that kind of culture that, you know, it's not just about always winning, it has to be about having fun. If you're not having fun, what is the point? And underpinning it with kindness. And we've talked about it before, but I believe that you cannot separate out work and home. I don't mean that from a work-life balance situation. I mean from a point of view, what goes on in our personal life affects our business. So, you know, I remember years ago standing up at PrettyGreen and saying the thing I'm most passionate about and care more about is the fact that we are one of the kindest agencies, and I love the fact we are kind. But no one was talking about kindness, and no one was talking about, you know, leaning into it. And, you know, during lockdown, I remember speaking to someone's mum in Australia and phoning her and saying, I just want to let you know that your daughter has got COVID, and I know you know that, but don't worry, we've got her and we will look after her, because I can imagine how worrying it is for you being in Australia with your daughter here. And that's because, you know, we care, and you should care about the staff, and you should care, because when they go down, when that V formation starts splintering because of personal, because of family, because of they're homeless, because the landlord's thrown them out, how are they going to be productive? How are they going to be on their A game when actually their life is in turmoil? So the view I've always had is that we should try and lean into that. We should try and help them, because Enlightened self-interest says they are more productive and they really help you.
And it's such a lovely perspective, because so many people, and I've had it myself, where your personal life's your personal life. Don't bring that to the office. And that used to be said, don't bring your home life in. You're at work now. This is now business. And I just think what a gift you've given to your people, that they can be fully themselves 24 hours a day, whether they're at home or at work. They don't have to shift gears or be somebody they're not.
And don't get me wrong, because if you spoke to anyone who works with me, I am absolutely relentless. And the problem with that is, and this sort of slight schizophrenia of wanting to win whilst running around kicking toilet, loo rolls down the corridor, that brings with it a different world of pain, for people who work with me, that it doesn't stop. And if you talk to Jess and Emma or Wendy, Henders at PrettyGreen, or you talk to Alex and the guys, that's the turmoil I have as a leader, is this sense of not everyone is a workaholic. Not everyone at Sunday morning at 6 o'clock is up checking their emails and firing off WhatsApps. So you have to balance that sort of restlessness and relentlessness in a way that I struggle with personally. But I know it and I identify it, so I try and hold off that, woodpecker like. But being self-aware, I think, helps. It doesn't make it excusable, but it does help.
And it's trying to take that restlessness and make sure it stays in that resourceful state, rather than going unresourcefully into the.
And I know when I become destructive, if I'm honest. I know when I can become destructive for me, for the people around me. And I think that, I don't know how many people have been on and talked about that, but there is a sense that most people, it's like this sort of double rainbow cocktail world that everyone lives in, and it's all perfect. And understanding when you become destructive to yourself, to your career, to the team, to the environment, is really important. And no different from when stress hits you and knowing what it does to you, knowing whether it affects your sleep, etc. I think there's that same thing in us as managers, leaders, founders, knowing when you become destructive, knowing when actually you need to let go and let other people take on the role and responsibility, I think, is quite key.
That's such good advice. And yes, that hasn't come through yet. And that helps, because I speak to a lot of leaders, and this pressure they put on themselves to be perfect. As you said, the rainbows, I can handle everything, whatever you throw at me, I'll figure it out. But behind the scenes, the stress, that it does get to a point where, like a kettle, it boils over and it does spill out and into your team and affects you. But I haven't actually, it's been really interesting, I haven't seen many leaders be able to call themselves out and go, I'm walking away right now. And I think that's a really good skill to be able to have, to go, I've caught this, I now need to go and do some self-care or get my mindset back in the right place. I need some help right now.
And I know I was at a stage with PrettyGreen where I was like, where do old agency people go? They go to a network and they chase people's expenses and chase each other's numbers. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And it's not for me. And I could see the team were better than me in so many different instances. And I needed a challenge and a change, whilst also wanting to not sell the agency to a network. And I wanted to do something different, but understanding that it's not easy to find that path. Sometimes, serendipity, sometimes you're more open to it. But I think, sometimes we feel trapped. We don't know where to go. But I think identifying the fact that you're at a juncture, you're at a crossroads, and we all go through it, whether you're, from 21 to 25 to 30 to 35, there are fairly seminal moments. I think it's having a team around you where you can have that conversation. They don't have the answers, but I think it's really important that, if you've got that kind of little voice inside you that's telling you something, that, people call it intuition, but it's that bit of listening to it and drawing it out and trying to understand what it's telling you, I think is really key.
And I love that, because a lot of the work I'm doing right now is being able to recognize the message your emotion's trying to give you. So if you're feeling angry, you're feeling tired, you're feeling sad, there's a message in that somewhere to let you know what you need to do next. And it's being, as you said, being able to tune into what's going on and not try and just shut it out and just keep going, because ultimately that leads to the road of burnout completely.
And there are very few people who are going to have the same job, doing the same thing year after year after year and be satisfied. And you could argue that my dad worked for the same company for 42 years. His dad worked for the same company for 42 years. And, that generation, maybe did it because they didn't have as much choice, or maybe they just did it because it was what was expected. We're not going to do it. So therefore, you have to look to see how you challenge yourself and how you go on that journey. And I think that, you know, we've talked about crocodiles. I'm bringing it back to crocodiles, but you know, 100 million years, like for those who don't know, 100 million years, crocodiles have not changed. They have Deliveroo on tap. Literally a wildebeest goes to the edge of the water, the crocodile comes up, grabs the wildebeest, eats it, drags it in the water. 100 million years of that. Amazing. Why do they need to evolve? They don't, because Deliveroo on tap with wildebeest. We don't have it, and therefore we could have had it, but we've evolved, and we've, you know, I've spoken about it with you, you know, 10,000 years of uncivilized man. You know, what are we doing? And I think that challenge we've got. I could ramble on, you know, I can.
Oh no, it's great. I absolutely love listening to you. And one of the things I remember, you know, you sharing with me, that's kind of one of your things that's driven you forward and to not be the crocodile and to keep progressing and moving forward, is your need to know that there's always a better way, that there's got to be a better way somehow. Where did you develop that sort of strategy, and how has that served you, and maybe where has it tripped you over sometimes?
I think I was really fortunate. I don't necessarily believe in luck. I believe in, you know, we are all faced with choice the whole time. We just don't like sometimes the choices we're given, and sometimes we don't take the opportunities because we're scared about them. But I was fortunate enough to be at Disney at the start of my career, a company in growth, a company that enabled me to get involved in fast marketing, and this idea of, you just tried things, and some worked, some didn't, and you went and you went and you went, and the business was flying. And you know, in a company that's growing, you get choice, and you look at things, and there's always another way, another thing to do, and it's exciting, and it's like a kid in a sweet shop. And I think from those early days, it was just that sense of work could be fun. You could have an absolute riot, be incredibly stressed, but not feel like you've got a job. And I went, as soon as I felt that, it felt that anything was possible, because in that sort of situation, every campaign was different. If you'd done it before, you kind of didn't want to do it again. So you were just this kind of meerkat looking for all these new things, as which Wendy, my wife, constantly says, "You're like a bloody meerkat." It's like, but was that more like a monkey? I don't know. But there is that sense of just getting out there and trying new things. It can't be that difficult. It can't be that difficult, because there are millions of houses that get built every year. It can't be that difficult, can it? There are millions of businesses set up every year. There are 5.9 million SMEs in the UK. Can't be that difficult, can it? How many people watching this are going, "I want to set up a business, I don't know how to do it"?
Yeah.
Well, walk down a high street, walk down to your local corner shop and ask him, because he's done it.
Yeah.
And it can't be that difficult. Most of us are not trying to land a rocket on Mars. And I know that, you know, it's a bit of a joke about that, but most of us aren't.
No.
You know, so it can't be that difficult.
Yeah.
If it is, find a person who is an astrophysicist. You know, there's lots of universities who've got astrophysicists. You know, go and find one.
And it's so true. And I remember, you know, when even I thought about setting up my own business, it feels so big. And I think as human beings, we sometimes make things so big that it feels like, I was trying to remember this quote, isn't it something like, how would you eat an elephant? And it's just like one piece at a time. It's like, if we can just break it down and simplify things and realize you can do it. You may not know how to do it, but you can. And you see, the reason I was able to set up the business is I found someone that I could model from, and they call it modeling excellence. They got the results that I wanted. So I learned their strategies, I learned their value sets, I learned how they think, what was their attitude, how did they structure their day, modeled that. 4 years later, still running a successful business. As you said, there's so many people out there that can offer guidance. We don't need to feel we're on our own and we're the first and the only people ever doing this.
And I think the bit that people struggle with, you know, the world is all about money and shareholder value and profits and, you know, yada, yada, yada. And yeah, brilliant. Of course, that's critical to any business success, of keeping shareholders happy and you know, raising money. And they are critical. And most businesses, you want smart money. You want people who lean in. And at SKOOT, we're amazing. We've got a phenomenal number of investors who are brilliant for us. But they also have bought into this ideology of more than just profits. You know, this idea of, you know, trying to save the planet in a good way, if you think about it in that way, that leaning into the environment. And I think that's why B Corp is really interesting. It's not just about shareholder value, it's about the employee value, it's about the environment. And I think, you know, if you think about setting up a business today, most of us would say, what do you want? Yes, we'd say we want a great lifestyle and we'd like to have money, but very quickly it's more than that. It's about a quality of life. And you know, most of us, I've been really lucky. I've managed to always have a job that's never felt like a job. It's always felt like a bit of a laugh. And for the last 2 years, every morning at 8:30, it was at 8, every morning, 6 days a week, it's gone down to 5 now. Greg, myself and Alex would be on a stand-up every single day at 8 o'clock, and now it's 8:30. 6 days a week. It wasn't because we had a job. It's because we passionately believed in doing something. And if it feels like a job, anyone watching this, if it feels like a job, change jobs.
Like, life's too short.
It shouldn't feel like a job. It kind of should feel a little bit like a vacation or a vocation.
Vocation.
Have a holiday. Have a holiday. Don't go in. He said vacation. I think he meant vocation. It doesn't really matter.
And it's so true. And you actually mentioned it just before we went live. And it's a saying that I'm hearing quite a lot at the moment, is this force for good. I was working with a CEO last night, and the language, I want to be a force for good. And it was just quite interesting hearing from you, you know, a startup going to a scale up, suddenly going to a network, how this force for good can very quickly turn into a force for bad. And that force for good gets lost. And I think right now, with coming out of COVID, well, as we're trying to come out of COVID, this employee experience and finding your passion, I don't know about you, but I'm just hearing this is becoming number one now, that people need to start listening to and take seriously. And as you said, then your shareholders will get taken care of anyway, because your employees are happy.
I mean, I saw the City AM report that said that 52% of people living in London are actively looking for a job. I kind of get it. You know, you can look at it in two ways. Whatever you do for your staff today, it doesn't really matter, because 52% are going to leave. So just don't do anything for the next few months and see what happens. There is that argument. But, you know, no matter how good an employee you are, or employer, the last 18 months have been pretty tough. You know, being sat in your padded cell. This is a straight jacket, by the way. But, you know, being sat in your padded cell, you just need change. So it's not your company's fault. It's just market forces. So you're going to change, and there is that sense. And you know, so you can argue that it doesn't really matter what you do now. It's going to matter what you do in the next few months when the new breed of staff come in. But you know, the reality is that people need meaning, and people want to be, you know, looked after, and people want more than the 42 years I go to work, I do a job, and then I leave. And I think if you can't give them purpose, the most overused marketing term of the minute, which I absolutely hate, it's not purpose. It's a marketing campaign to demonstrate some BS purpose that you've got as a marketeer or as a company. The business has to have a purpose. The business needs to, you know, scratch under the value set. Does it live the values? Does it believe in its purpose? And if it doesn't, it's BS. It's just, you know, you're not buying into what the business is doing. And I passionately believe more and more that, you know, at SKOOT, there is a huge carbon time bomb. It is ticking. 278 billion miles we drive a year, 50 million tons of carbon, 18% of all CO2 comes from cars. And as a car owner, if anyone is a car owner, as a business owner, you have a responsibility to ensure that your staff are doing good. You're asking them to come to the office. They weren't just coming to the office willy-nilly. They didn't just knock, hello, I decided to come to your office. You've employed them. You've asked them to come to the office. You have an obligation to do something to help them. And if you're not doing it, who is? Because you're not chucking your rubbish over your neighbour's gate, you know, going, no, it's not my responsibility. Yet when it comes to carbon emissions, we don't understand that. Sorry, so I'm just going to get off my soapbox.
No, it's a really, really good point. And coming down to me, leadership is responsibility. And that responsibility is now stretching wider and wider. And we're really going into the responsibility of your, as you said, not just your people in the office, but how are they doing outside the office? What are you asking of them that actually could be impacting the environment and impacting the planet? So responsibility and leadership, I think, is getting wider and wider and wider, and leaders need to be ready to get themselves future fit to be able to perform in that way. Would you agree?
Yeah, and boards, what was really interesting, we, from the get-go, we were the first carbon negative carpooling app in the world. You know, how is that possible that Little Us is the first and only carbon negative carpooling app? Well, you go, this is absolutely ridiculous. But we thought it would come from consumer power championing change, actually, and we thought it would be bottom up. What's really interesting is it's coming top down now. In the last 18 months, it's pivoted back to top down, maybe because we have looked at what COVID's done, maybe an understanding that actually this is man-made, whether or not you think it's come out of a laboratory, whether or not you think it's someone up to no good with a bat and something, which would be weird. But, you know, whatever's going on, this sense of fragility around the environment caused by COVID, the idea that the world is kind of closed for a period of time, I think has made us think, this is really bad. And then alongside that, the carbon tax is coming. The carbon tax is coming for businesses. Already in Germany, it's 25 euros per ton of output per employee before an offset. And I think businesses are looking at it saying, we fundamentally know the tax is coming. It's already in multiple European territories. If we don't reduce and avoid our CO2, we are going to be taxed. And therefore, we need to get match fit now. And I think that then is now cascading down to every single member of staff being told that they need to identify, we talk about identify, offset and avoid. And every HR person and sustainability person is going, oh, I don't know what this means. Scope what? Scope 1, 2, 3? What's that mean? No idea.
No, and it's a really good message. We've all got to take more action, and we've all got to get match fit. We really do. Conscious of the time, I would be. Oh, we just had David Winterbourne saying, "Love the direction SKOOT is taking." Thank you, David. Conscious of your time, and I know how busy a man you are with all the different things you're doing. The question I always love to finish on, and I give you two different lenses you can look at it. It's either what advice would you give young Mark as he was coming in and starting out fresh, or the advice that you would give to young people now coming into the industry? What would you like to pass on?
I'm not going to talk about my younger self. I always look back and cringe at my younger self, and it's really weird. It's sort of like, oh God. Advice coming into the industry, because I love this, and I've, you know, PrettyGreen were one of the founding partners with Brixton Finishing School, and trying to sort of address some of the inclusivity issues in the marketing industry. And I do a talk every year to their cohort, and you know, my view is you have to back yourself, right? If you don't back you, who backs you? Like if you don't back yourself coming in, you know, it comes across that you have to back you. It doesn't mean that you have to be arrogant, doesn't need to be obnoxious, but you have to back you, and you have to be you. And I think that sense of entering the industry, you know, you have to do that on the one hand, and the next thing is you have to really want it. You know, you have to have a passion to go above and beyond. And if you don't have that passion, if you really don't want it, because you don't back you, or it's just a job. It's not just a job. Like, it's never just a job. If it's just a job, don't do it. And you know, you can sense it in an interview when you're meeting someone whether they really want it, because we can make people smarter, we can make people better. We can't make people want it. We cannot light a fire in people in a way. We can help, but kind of you have to want it. You have to be the person that in any, whether it's music, arts, doesn't really matter, you have to want it. And that passion, you know, I'm not the best at anything, if I'm honest. I'm not the best at anything, but I believe that I will win when it comes to it, because I've got more tenacity than the next person. I will go again and again and again because I want it more than that next person. And that's the thing that you need to believe in. And it's not true, because I lose every day, but you have to kind of have that belief.
Bigger vision that you're going to win. Yeah, I love that. And I think brilliant message. Back yourself, believe in yourself, and be yourself. I think that's the whole thing. So many people struggle just to be themselves. It's just be you, and just love who you are and own who you are. Mark, thank you.
Or be more crocodile and just
Or be more crocodile. Why not?
just lie there, eat a wildebeest, don't change for 100 million years. It's all fine. And you know, so if someone says, if someone says, look, this really isn't for you, you go, no, I'm a crocodile. I'll just be more crocodile.
That's right.
Whatever.
Mark, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
So much wisdom you've shared, and I know it's going to help a lot of the listeners. Is there any final words before we close?
If you're a business owner, HR person, a sustainability person, and you want to make a difference, reach out to me at business@scootride.com, or find me on LinkedIn and let's have a chat. We can sign you up to the platform in no time at all. £47 a month. And that's not all. That's not all. QVC.
Bonus.
Yeah, hold on. I'll throw in a water bottle.
It's brilliant, and thank you for sharing that. And in the comments as well, I'll also share so people know how to get in touch with you, Mark. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate it. And thank you for those for tuning in. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.